Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Southeastern Bow Hunter Podcast. In this episode, we have Mr. Brian Anderson from G5 and Prime to come on and talk about all of G5's broadheads, what makes G5 such a great company, and what also makes Prime a good company. Good ain't even good enough. Great. Absolutely amazing. I say that because they came out with this new bow called the Form, and I went and shot it last week, and it by far blew out all of my expectations. It was amazing. So we're going to dive into that in this episode. Before we do that, got to run through the partners real quick. As you can see on my head, Working Class Bow Hunter. We've been partnered with them for a few months now. I've been friends with Kurt for years. Probably like 3-4 years, whatever. Anyway, the point is, if you guys want a really good podcast and you're listening to this one, go listen to Working Class Bow Hunter. And when you do that, go to workingclassbowhunter.com. Check out all the merchandise that they have and use the code SEBH15 to save you 15%. You can get a hat like this. You can get a shirt. You can get a hoodie, stickers, koozie, whatever. They cover everything merchandise-wise that you would want. And they also have a pretty amazing podcast. So definitely go check those guys out. Next up is going to be the Boutique. My buddy Michael Stonebreaker makes the best arrow wraps in the game. Can customize arrow wraps to anything that you need. And he also has a bunch of pre-designed wraps that you can go ahead and just buy right now. So if you go and do that, go to theboutiquellc.com and use the code SEBHP for free shipping. Next up is going to be Osseo Gear. In this episode, we do talk about Osseo Gear. Osseo Gear is just, in my opinion, a staple now in the camo industry. Joe is an amazing guy, amazing hunter. It's an amazing company with amazing people behind it. It's a family. So being part of that family, I think you guys should join the family too. If you use the code SEBH at checkout at osseogear.com on any of the products, that's shirts, hats, beanies, gloves, jackets, pants, whatever, that'll save you 15%. I highly recommend you do it. I've been using Osseo now for 2 years, and I don't have any plans of turning back. Okay, Osseo is, I'm in it for the long run. So I highly recommend you guys try them out too. Let me know if you do. I want to hear what you guys think. Next up is gonna be Summit Tree Stands. Summit Tree Stand has been a staple in the industry for probably as long as I've been alive, if not damn close. Summit is a great company that makes climbers, hang-on sticks, accessories for the climbers. They cover everything you need in the woods for tree stands. So why not try it? Go to summitstands.com. Check out the Dual Threat Pro SD. That is the climber that I'm using. Awesome climber. And when you do that, whether you pick that climber, a different climber, hang on, whatever it is, anything you pick on that website, use the code SEBH15 to save you 15%. Next up is going to be Scout Tech. Scout Tech is the camera company that we have been partnered with now for a little bit over a year. Great company, great dudes behind it. One of my good friends, Ryan, is he works for the company. He's actually part of the family that owns it. And they have treated us so well. I hope we're treating them pretty well. We are definitely putting those cameras to use. And, man, I'm telling you, they work amazingly. With the snow and the ice that we've been having, we have had no issues. I've had no cameras go down. Solar panels still work fine. They're tough. And they are actually coming out with their first Scout Tech brand camera. Now, I say that, and you're asking, well, weren't you just talking about some other cameras? So originally, Scout Tech was a software company, or at least I think that's what it was. Point is, the internals of their camera is the same internals that was with some other brands. They decided to branch off and make their own thing, and I'm very excited for it. So keep an eye out for the new camera that's coming from Scout Tech. Go to scouttech.com if you want to get some of the cameras that are currently running their software and get you some solar panels. And get started with Scout Tech today, man. You will not be disappointed. Next up is going to be Ace Hardware. I think I mentioned Ace in this episode. I'm not 100% sure, but either way, they are a Prime dealer. They also are a dealer for Hoyt, Matthews, PSE, Bear, Elite, Bowtech, pretty much all the big dogs. And really awesome guys there. Hunter, John, they're great. They are. I mean, everyone that works over there is awesome people. Or they are awesome people, if I can speak correctly. I really want to try and help support a local company. They've been working on my bows for years, and I trust them. They sell everything you need. They sell a bunch of G5 stuff. Like I said, they have Prime. They have camo. They have tree stands. They have all the broadheads that you would need. Just a great group of guys. So go check them out. Go to Social Circle Georgia and tell them that we sent you. Next up is going to be Bergie Bowsmith. Now, if you want an in-depth bow wizard to tune your bow, Bergie is the guy to go to. He is also a dealer for a wide range of brands that we all use. So definitely go to his website, bergiebowsmith.com, and place an order for him to tune your bow, bare shaft out to 15 yards. If you're not satisfied, he will make sure that you are satisfied. If you have your own place that you take your bow and you don't want to do that, you can still get products from Bergie. Like I said, bergiebowsmith.com, and use the code SEBH10 to save 10% at checkout. Dialed Archery. Dialed Archery is the site that I use. I run the Dialed Arxos. They've recently dropped that, and now they have the Dialed Proof. The Dialed Proof is the Arxos, but improved. I haven't got one yet, but dude, from what I've seen and what I've heard, amazing. So Dialed makes, in my opinion, the best bow sight on the market. I think that you guys should definitely, now that deer season is basically over for most of us, I think y'all should give Dialed a shot. Go to dialedarchery.com and start customizing your proof today. Last but not least is going to be Camo Dust. Camo Dust is my scent control company that I've been using now for about 2 to 3 years. I think 3 years. I love it. It works. I have literally hunted with the wind blowing at my back to the deer, and they do not smell me. I really don't have anything else to say other than go to camodust.com and pick you up some. If you do, get the 6-packs that'll last you a whole season. Other than that, Camo Dust is the way to go. Can't convince me otherwise. So that's all the partners. As you guys know, before I get into every single episode, I have to give credit to the big man upstairs, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I hope that he's yours too. If you don't know him, please give him a shot. Okay. I know that Trump won. I know that things are looking bright. That's amazing. The fact that Trump survived the assassination attempts is, if you don't see that as a God situation, like God being there and moving Trump's head or moving moving the bullet, whatever it is, I don't know what to tell you, man. God is working. Okay. And if you are in a dark place right now, just give Jesus a shot. Okay. He will pull you out of it. I'm living proof of that. I can't tell you how many times I've been in like a dark spot in my life, and I just look up and I say, Jesus, help me. And the next day, just like that. May not work like that for everybody, but some things take time. But to know that I've got somebody to fall back on like that, it's amazing. It truly is amazing. So enough rambling on that. This episode with Brian was awesome. You're going to hear a lot of laughs, a lot of good information. I do fangirl a little bit. Couldn't help it. What can I say? So anyway, enough rambling on. Let's get started with Brian Anderson from Prime and G5. We have a very special guest with us today, Mr. Brian Anderson. And if you don't know who that is, he is with Prime and G5, which those who know me, they know that G5 has always been one of my favorite broadhead companies. I'm a huge fan of the Mega Meat. And then recently I shot the new form that they came out with, and dude, boy, what a bow. Y'all knocked it out of the park. I got to say it. Okay. I do that. So I guess we'll just dive into that first, because I do want to get your background with G5 and Prime and like how you got to where you're at. Yeah. But when that bow, so I knew about that bow back about a month before it came out. Right. I reached out to Billy Hudala, which I think is our Georgia rep.
Yep.
I tried to do a podcast with him. I know the dude's super busy, and I never really heard back after we said after the bow launches. But one of my buddies told me about the bow, right? So I knew something was coming. And I was like, all right, well, Prime definitely innovates. So what is this going to be? And my buddy Hunter texted me and was like, dude, when you see this, it's going to take you a minute to get used to it. And I'm thinking, okay, is it like going to be kind of like Hoyt, where it's like crazy reflex, or is it going to have 3 cams or 6? Like, what are y'all going to do? And so then I finally saw a picture that was on Facebook of it, and I thought it was fake at first. I was like, what is that? And so I screenshotted it. Well, I screenshotted the photo and sent it to my buddy. I was like, is this the bow? And he goes, yep. And I was like, dude, that is, I thought it was cool right from the get-go. And then MFJJ does a video of it the day it drops. And I think I might have been, it's weird, but I think you and I both know that like YouTube comments are the worst place to be. So I comment on there. I was like, dude, that's the sickest bow I've ever seen. And I had probably about 50 to 60 people below me. Some of them were positive. Some of them were like sick as in you're feeling sick or sick as in cool? I'm like, dude, sick as in that is the coolest bow that has ever been on the market. And it just was a constant. And I eventually was like, you know what? There's a reason Rogan doesn't read these. So I'm just not going to do it. But yeah, man, what you guys did with that bow, I mean, it's so smooth. It's 34-inch axle to axle, but it doesn't feel like it. I
Right.
mean, how, like, how did that happen?
We can get into that. Yeah, no, it's we did a lot of things. I mean, a lot of things have came up to this point, to get there. I mean, obviously we've always kind of pushed the boundary on technology. So it was kind of a culmination of bringing everything over the past 10 years into one kind of package, but also looking at a different way to work with carbon and other materials. So here, let me do a quick intro. So for the guys that don't know, Brian
Go for it.
Anderson, brand manager for G5 Prime and Montana Rifle Company. Basically started in a little archery shop. My dad was a professional shooter, so I started working in an archery shop about 13 years old. Basically, between eighth and ninth grade, I was fletching arrows in the back room. By the time I was in ninth and 10th grade, I was running the shop. By the age of 22, one of my sales reps brought me in for an interview at G5. I was just going to be answering phones, doing tech calls, and progress from there. I've done sales for him for almost 10 or 12 years. And then the last couple of years, I took over the brand management position. So basically, kind of being a little more of the public eye and working with our celebrities, working with guys like you, and just kind of working a mix between sales, marketing, and just kind of being all over the place. So you'll see me at a convention, you'll see me, behind the desk, you'll see me a little bit of everywhere there. So
That's awesome. It's like
yeah,
a
yeah.
dream come true.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, I kind of grew up in it, and a lot of the guys that I grew up with are just local, like hunters, but they're also construction guys, things like that. And they're like, "Man, you have the dream job." For a while, I didn't think so because we launched all our products in October. I'm like, "Guys, you guys get to go hunt, I get to work." But
Yeah.
we've been able to progress and be able to get us. We do this because it's a passion, so we've been able to make sure we all have time to hunt and chase the dreams and chase the animals we want. So,
Well,
but
and I'll say too, like so my thing with Prime is actually the Form is the first Prime I've ever shot. I
okay,
just found out about them when my buddy Jay Maxwell switched over to y'all
yeah,
for,
yep.
what was it, like a couple years ago, I think.
Mhm.
And I already had bows, and I was like, well, I'll shoot them when I get the chance, right? And our local shop carries them, and I'd always seen them, and they were always a 34 axle to axle. I'm like, it's a little long, because my draw length's like 27 and a half or so.
Okay, yep.
And my current bow is a 31-inch bow, which that's kind of where I started with. And so I just was like, all right, well, once I see like a 32, I'll try it. And it just so happened that when I went into the shop, the Form was there, and I'm like, dude, I gotta shoot that. But like I said, I heard about Prime when Jay switched over to y'all from I think it was Hoyt.
Yep.
And then I saw that Prime made an Osseo gear camo bow, which caught my eye because we're partnered with Osseo, been partnered for like
Okay.
2 years. And I was like, oh, what's this? So then started just looking into it, and I went way back. Like I was looking up stuff when y'all had the I forget what it's called, but that cam that had the two.
Parallel cam. So
Yes,
that's where we
yes.
kind of started with is Nate, our head engineer, with one of the G5. So basically, guys that don't know, G5 stands for Grace, but that's the last name of the owners. There's 5 kids, but it also stands biblically for five. Grace, kind of the combo. So there's a little tie of the Christianity, but a little tie to the family there. But Nate thinks outside the box. There's nothing he does that isn't, like, I'm going to do it this way. Everybody wants to go this way. I'm going to go this way. So Nate was looking at things that really mattered: cam lean, stiffness, and risers. Things that just brands were doing, but they were more focused on shooting a bow at a shop at 10 feet and making sure the bow is dead and quiet in the hand, which is important, 100% important.
Mhm.
But those are great for selling features. They're not great for a guy that needs to go out and shoot or go out west and chase something at longer distance. So Nate was thinking outside the box on how we could really get rid of cam lean. Cam lean, it's not as important as maybe Sam say, but it has to be consistent. And that's where
Mhm.
Nate was thinking, like, well, instead of putting a yoke where you're twisting it and it can change and change the limb, like, let's control the cam in a better way. So that's when we came out with a parallel. We were actually building bows for quite a few brands that weren't our own when we came out with Prime. And we kind
Wow.
of that was the point where we kind of split ties with all the manufacturing we did, and we're like, this is time for us. So we came out with a parallel cam. We were one of the first brands to ever use 7,000 series aluminum to make risers super stiff, super, super strong. If you go way down the rabbit hole, there's videos of young me standing underneath a Jeep that we lifted with a riser. Like, other brands were just completely folding in half. We
What?
picked up a bow a full-size Jeep, and I walked underneath it and stood there and did an interview. So the trust I had there was probably a little bit of stupid, naive, or being young, but I seen what we did to get there, you know. So yeah, if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, you can find those videos too. But so yeah, so then we took the parallel cam, and then we went to a system called the Swerve. If you see some of our bows, the riser isn't straight underneath the grip. Well,
Mhm.
what we found is you can have the coolest, the most badass cam system out there, the most in sync cam, but if your riser flexes differently top for bottom, it doesn't matter because then now your cams are no longer, in time. So a lot of brands have put trussing in the riser, which stiffens it up, but it doesn't necessarily mirror it top for bottom. So the Swerve is basically matching the riser of the shelf window and the sight window to the bottom of the bow. So we thought outside the box when it came to that. And then we looked at what made some of the best shooting, most accurate bows in the industry, and it's always been a center grip. Hoyt has put center grips in their target bows for 20, 30 years. They just don't really talk about it because it's not an easy process to tune. So Nate figured out, let's do a center grip so the bow balances in your hand better. It aims on target better. Like you said, it doesn't feel like a 34-inch bow. But it also gives a better overall system. So it's kind of been a progression of that. So the form was a perfect one to kind of jump in and just do one size at 34 because one, the grip's 2 inches higher, so it doesn't feel like that. It performs like a 31 to 32-inch bow. It balances. It's super light. It's 4.1 pounds at 34 inches. Not anybody's anywhere close to that. With an all carbon riser. So we can kind of take those things year to year to year and just kind of really came together this year on that form. So.
Yeah, I mean that was the big thing for me that I noticed when I shot the bow. Andrew, so the two biggest thing for me has always been grip and draw cycle, right? I feel like you can kind of get stability. I mean, I've got, a front and back bar on my bow.
Sure.
It's
Yeah,
stable. I mean, it's as stable as I'm gonna get it, right?
exactly.
But when I shot the form, the first thing I noticed was a draw cycle, which I know Prime is known for a smoother draw cycle, but still holding good speed. No problem there at all. And then once I got it all the way back and actually shot it, before I, hit the trigger, I noticed I wasn't really kind of cantering to the left to right as much. And I shot it and I looked at my buddy and I was like, dude, this thing is so stable. I was like, can I shoot it again? He was like, dude, shoot as much as you want. I spent like 15 minutes shooting that bow. Just draw back, hit. And it was 1 inch too long too. And that's another thing is like, they didn't want to change the mods. They were like, well, just shoot 29. And I was like, okay. And I drew it back and they were like, that's actually not too far off from your draw length, which I don't know if that's got something to do with the center grip or not, but I was
Um,
impressed.
it might. It's probably. I mean, and I think brands have gotten better, but I would say overall, it's probably just for the sure reason we're closer to what drawing should be. We don't really fub our numbers. We're not the fastest bow on the market. We don't claim to be. Same thing
Mhm.
with draw lengths. We're not going to give you an extra half an inch of draw length just to get speed out of the bow. A 29 is a 29 with our bows, where maybe depending on what you're shooting, a 29 may actually be a 29 and a half with another brand. So that could be part of it. Center grip, the balancing point probably could be part of it. There's a little bit of factors there.
Gotcha. So I kind of want to talk about this new thing. I mean, it may be new, but y'all have two different mod systems for this bow now,
We
right?
do.
Okay,
Yep.
so you've got the comfort mod and then you have a speed mod.
Mhm.
So what kind of, for the speed freaks out there, what kind of speed increases are we looking for, like with those speed mods?
7 feet across the board. So it doesn't matter what it is. We made sure we were hitting 7 feet on every half-inch draw length mod. Nice thing about it is I didn't develop, but I worked with the engineers and to make sure we were doing the right things, that we weren't going to wear out servings, that it wasn't big jumps in the letdown, things like that. It's super incredibly smooth for a performance mod. I mean, really, I think it's as smooth as most people's genuine, standard mods. Like if you looked at something like Bowtech that has a speed and a standard and a speed or a performance or whatever they're calling them,
Mhm.
ours leans way more towards the standard feel. Like, I mean, I'll call it out. Hoyt last year was claiming that you could pull it an 80 pounder that felt like a 70. Well, that thing changed this year. Like that mod, their new bow's great, but it's definitely not as smooth. Like I'd say our performance mod feels as good as Hoyt's mod did last year. So we're really excited to bring out something that's going to give you more speed, but also not rip your shoulder out. If you need to let down when that time comes, you can still let down with this mod. We're pretty excited about it. We're just wrapping them up, so they'll be hitting the market in, I would say, the next 3 to 4 weeks. But yeah, I mean, just an additional 7 feet. And the cool thing is you can pop it on and try it if you want it. If you don't, you can just, it's 4 screws to change them out to standard. So I'll be putting them on my bow this year. I mean, I'm kind of right there with you. I got like a 27 to 28 inch draw length. So I'm going to take every little bit of speed I can, especially with how great the performance is in the bow. So
Well, I can definitely attest to what you said on that comparison between y'all, the Form and the new Hoyts, because I shot them the same day, and the Hoyts definitely were a bit stiffer.
yeah,
But the Prime, because so this was the comparison that I made with them, right? The Hoyts felt like something if you're going to, like, if you're one of those guys that wants to shoot, I don't know, 120 yards attack, right? Because I mean, those bows are faster. They're more
they are.
geared
They are.
towards being fast.
Yep.
That's a bow I would take to tack, but it's not a bow I would take into the woods, right?
Right.
Prime, when I drew it back, I was like, oh, this is something, because I struggled a little bit this year. Like when I got cold or I got nervous, I went to draw my bow back and I shoot a bare whitetail max, which is pretty stiff in the front end. But I would go to draw it back, and dude, there was a couple times that like, and I'm sure, you've probably felt this too, where you go to draw back and that muscle right here kind of kicks in some, and I had to let it down. I'm like, well, okay, what's going on here? Like, this isn't normal. The Prime, I don't feel like that would happen with how smooth it was. So whatever you guys are doing to make these bows as smooth as they are, keep doing it, because I was impressed.
That.
I mean,
it's always going to be something we're going to lean towards is going to be comfort and to be able to draw smooth, let down smooth over, an additional 5 feet per second. I mean, there's no doubt that we're going to look at more performance in the bows in the future, things like that. But really, we wanted a bow that didn't matter which hunting situation you're in a tree stand, chasing elk, you'd be able to pull it back in 100 degrees or -20. We want a bow that's going to be comfortable across the board. So, yeah, no. So, I mean, I appreciate that because, I mean, there's a lot of guys that just strictly, well, it's not fast enough or things like that, we want a
yeah,
bow that's shooter, and here's the cool thing is once somebody really puts a prime in their hand and goes out and shoots 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever it may be, you're going to notice how much tighter your groups are. You're really not going to need the additional 5 to 10 feet per second because you're going to be able to hold it steadier. You're going to make a better shot at those distances. So I don't think the little bit of difference is going to make that much. You're going to pick that up in performance. So
yeah. I just honestly, man, I just like the innovation that Prime does. I mean,
appreciate that.
everything, and Dylan talked about it in his episode. I think I listened to the episode like 2 or 3 times when it came out because, I mean, I've been buddies with Dylan now for about a year, and he's been on the podcast a couple of times. And he told me before, and this is kind of what got y'all, I'm not going to say got y'all on my radar more, but made me be like, okay, I really need to pay attention to this. He told me on the last episode after we recorded, he was like, yeah, by the way, I'm leaving Bear. I was like, you're what? He's like, yeah, I'm going over to Prime. And I was like, oh. I was like, do they have anything new coming? And he kind of gave me that look. I was like, all right, Dylan, tell me what's up. Tell me like what's the difference? And he laid it all out. And I can't blame him. I really can't. Because like he said in his episode with you, the innovation is there. You guys do, in my opinion, a bunch of new things every year. And honestly, I'm a little biased because of that arrow grip that y'all have. I mean, dude, my hands get cold. Okay. So the
Like
fact
I
that
said,
that stays warm.
It's
I love
6
it.
degrees here today. It makes a difference, and a lot of guys say you need a carbon bow to stay warm. Well, you don't. We figured out a different way to do it. No, the aerogel's really, really cool. Like the first time I played with it, I was like, this is space age. I mean, that's what it is. NASA developed it. It's made for their satellite dishes. It's made for their space suits. I mean, this stuff is supposed to keep you warm in sub-negative degrees. So I mean, there's been companies that have used it in the clothing side. Arctic Shield is one of the first ones to ever kind of bring it out. Basically, when they brought it out, it wasn't as manufacturable and it wasn't as easy to process as it is now. So we worked with another company to kind of develop it in sheets. So like if somebody ever takes a grip off a prime bow, don't peel the white stuff off. That's your aerogel. That's the stuff that 99% air. It's the best insulator in the world. It doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees or -100. That grip's going to be comfortable in your hand. So we're really excited to keep using that. So
what you're saying is if you buy a Prime, you're buying the space bow.
exactly, NASA
Love it.
approved.
Love it. NASA approved. I like it. That should be one of the new taglines for the bows. Well, speaking of the bows, so we've pretty much covered the form. I mean, is I really want to know, and I don't know if you can talk about it, but I was looking at it. when it was in my hands, and I shot it a bunch of times, then compared it to the Hoyts and stuff, and then put the Hoyts back up, and the prime was still sitting there. And I was just talking to my buddies, and I kept catching myself looking at it, and I was looking at the carbon fiber tubing and how it connects to the aluminum. Like, are you able to tell us how that works?
I could talk about it a little bit.
Okay.
So, and for the guys that don't know, the Form is a brand new bow for Prime. It's 50% carbon, it's 50% aluminum. We consider it the first hybrid bows out there. There's been bows that have dabbled with it. We feel this is the first integrated riser that's not bolted together or screwed together or anything like that. If you look at any carbon bow out there, there's some better than others. There's aluminum components on the bow, where you mount your rest, where you mount your sight, where your cable guard fixed to, where your string suppressor is, where it hooks to the limb pocket. It has to have some kind of aluminum in there. The problem with it is carbon, when you're hand laying carbon, same thing like bike frames and things like that. It's a great process. It's a very stiff process. It's inconsistent. It's still hand laid. So we wanted and looked at a process through the years. Like Nate's been looking at carbon for 10, 12 years going, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. So what we started looking at and what has been a staple in the hunting industry forever, stabilizers and arrows. Strongest, straightest version of carbon is a linear tube. So we looked at, all right, how do we take this linear tube and integrate it into our riser to make our riser stronger, make our light stiffer? So what we've been able to do, one, it's American made carbon. So we're really excited about that. We're claiming we're one of the only ones that are doing that. But yeah, it's a proprietary bonding process. So what a lot of people don't know is carbon and aluminum together can actually create a battery or create a current. So we're actually bonding these two together through a surface where it's basically keeping the carbon and the aluminum kind of somewhat separated. It's got over 8,000 pounds of pull force. So when we're actually we have these little lugs that we do our testing with. When we bond them onto the carbon tube, we're over 8,000 pounds of force before we have any kind of breakage. So, I mean, we were hoping to get around 700 to 800 pounds. So we tenfolded what we really needed to do. The carbon tube itself, it is a tube. It's almost more like a rod. It's super, super heavy duty. It's probably, I'm not going to go technical with tenths and things like that. It's probably a quarter of an inch wall thickness on those carbon tubes. I mean, there's something that 1,000-pound dude could hang from and have no problem with it. I mean, but yeah, it's a proprietary bonding system that basically you're welding the aluminum to the carbon. So I don't want to give too much just because we don't want to get it. We know other people are looking at this process, and we know other people are going to dabble in it at some point. We do have a lot of patents to cover it, but the archery industry is small and people figure out how to ways to get around them. It's the name of the game, right?
Yeah, I've been seeing it a lot with that mag light, magnite, magtite, whatever type of stuff. So that's why I was wondering if you could talk about it because I could not figure it out. I'm like, all right, is it super glue? Like, how did you guys do this?
Yeah, it's definitely not super glue. I mean, we work with all kinds of adhesive and bonding, companies, to find the right one, to find one that's going to hold up with weather, hold up with, hot and cold, salt, as much linear, structure, breaking back and forth. Like I said, carbon's great as a linear, but if you start bending it, it's not the greatest thing, So we had to figure out how to make it so stiff and bond so well that it's the stiffest riser by like 40% on anything we've ever built, We've used 7,000, used 82X in the past. We've used some crazy, exotic materials to get it stiff like that. But I mean, this is by far, we're excited about it because it was one of the biggest processes was trying to figure out how to bond them together, how to make sure it wasn't going to fail. If anybody looks at the launch video, you'll kind of see the pressure. We actually put a riser in the middle where we were trying to, not a pull force, but an actual braking force. It slipped off at like 1,400 pounds. The riser flexed, moved out of the way, and the thing went right back to it. There's no basically no problems, no nothing. I mean, it's welded. The adhesive side of it or the process is definitely something to not worry about. I mean, I get people are going to look at it and go, wow, this is completely different. Because you can see the exposed carbon. We're the only bow company that you can actually see carbon fiber on. So we wanted that. We wanted to make sure. I mean, the engineering was going to paint things like, no, guys, like as a team, we're like, we need that to be exposed. We need to see people to see what we're doing. And it took a long time. It took a long time to figure out how to clean it. It took a long time to make sure the finished ends look good. It's a different process. So I mean, we're pretty excited about the future of what we can do. AST is going to be It's going to be the future of prime. And I think it's going to be, bringing, it's going to shake things up on how bows are built and how bows can be built. So,
Dude, I'm so excited. I could hear that all day long. I love it, man. I just what you guys did with that bow, and I'm probably said it about 5 times, but it's amazing. It truly is. Whoever the engineer is, hats off to him. That guy deserves a raise. My God, like, okay, so I'm done obsessing over the form. What
you're
other
good.
boats did you guys come out with this year?
So we've still wanted to stay in the aluminum line. We've always, that's been the king of us. We're metallurgists at heart. So we came out with, so basically 2 years ago we had the RevX. Last year we had the RVX series 32 and 34-inch axles. This year we took the same limb pocket that we were putting on the form, which is a narrower pocket. We wanted to go to a narrow shim system. So we've been able to kind of add stiffness but take out weight. So it's our lightest aluminum bows we've ever had at 3.3 and 3.4 pounds. Basically, an RVX Plus is what we're calling it. 32
Whoa.
inch version and a 34-inch version. I was actually pretty lucky because everybody in the office wanted to shoot a form this year, and I get why, but
Yeah.
we needed somebody to shoot an aluminum bow. So I jumped on it. I'm like, man, I've always been a 32-inch guy. I love that platform. So I've been shooting the 32 plus all season. It's the bow I took to Idaho. It's the bow I took to Kansas, Michigan, you name it. It's been traveled, and that little bow is awesome. I mean, it's by far our deadest in the hand, stiffest riser, quietest prime we've ever had, in an aluminum chassis. Same price point it was last year, so it didn't. You got more benefits with it this year, but you didn't. Price didn't go up. We're a family company at heart. We want to make sure people can afford the stuff that's out there. So
Yeah.
yeah. So there's two new aluminum bows at 32 and 34.
That's so sick, man. I love the fact that you guys are family owned. I think that is something that is so rare these days because a lot of the people that I work with, they're not like I think honestly, you could probably say Summit. I'm not sure if Summit's family. I don't think they're family owned, but other than that, everyone else is sort of like that's something I've been looking for with
Mhm.
people that I either know or meet or work with or whoever it is. It's like I want to be able to talk to the person that actually knows what's going on, not just send an email and get some random email back like, oh yeah, I talked to so and so and they said this and we're doing. It's like I get it. That's what needs to happen, but yeah, being family owned and it's amazing. Like there's so much
Pretty
value
unique
in
in
that.
this industry. I mean, it really is. There's still some staples. I mean, obviously Matthew, Matt McPherson still owns Matthews, but I mean, there's few and few and few of this. I mean, there's a lot of brands that are basically big conglomerates that came and bought up a lot of the industry.
Mhm.
Matt, his brother Nate, they're two amazing guys. I mean, the cool thing about those guys is a lot of people don't even realize that they're standing next to him at an event like TAC events, ATA. You're probably talking to one of the owners of the company and you have no idea. They're not cocky, they're not
Huh.
arrogant. They're very proud of what we've built and what they've been able to develop, but they're just down to earth people. And it's been a blessing for me because I mean, I've had opportunities with other brands, but it feels good to work for a family owned company, especially one that cares about their employees.
Yeah,
Shit, I drive 45 miles to the office every single day. It's not easy, but I love doing it. So,
worth it.
yeah, and I'm working hand in hand with the owners. I'm working hand in hand with some of their family. When I started, it was Lou and his two sons. Lou's pretty much retired now, and it's still his two sons. But I mean, it's family to the core. They're walking around the shop floor, when like COVID would happen. Matt didn't know, like basically Michigan shut down. Like by the end of the day, you can't have any employees working. Matt never stopped working. I mean, some of us got laid off or some of us worked from home. Matt was cleaning the bathrooms. Matt was washing the walls when nobody was in the building. Like you don't
Wow.
see that anymore. And to me, it was like, this is the reason I met with this company and the reason I'll probably be there with, for as long as they'll let me. So
That's so cool, man. God, I love hearing that. That's so genuine. That's so genuine. So before we switch over to the broadhead thing, is there
yeah.
anything else about Prime that we need to know? Actually, one question I do have is, do you think the form will ever be a 32?
I think we're going to be able to do a lot of things with the form. I
Yeah.
don't know if we're going to have any extra releases for 2025,
Yeah.
but definitely the future is going to come in different sizes. So, yeah, I think we're going to be able to do more. That's the cool thing about the form, the AST process and the carbon tubes and whatever materials we decide to use in the future,
Mhm.
it's going to give us a lot more adaptability of being able to build bows on a faster process than any other brands. I mean, the biggest thing in the industry right now is forgings. Basically, everybody buys this big giant chunk of aluminum and you're kind of stuck into a class for 2, 3, 4 years, whatever your investment would cost you. Where
Mhm.
this is going to allow us to have a little bit more play on development time. Do we want to change this, that, and this? We can do that a much quicker fly of process. So I think you're going to see a lot of different versions of the form in the future. Yeah.
Ah, it's so cool. I'm so
So
excited. I just love how it looks, man. What we need to do is get a form in Osseo. That would just be
we've made a couple. I think Jay just got his the other day. I think we did a gray riser with Osseo limbs on it. It
Oh,
looks
really? I need to
really
go back and
good.
look at the
So,
photo.
and I think I got one. I don't know if it's shipped or not. We're a little further behind than we wanted to, but the bows are pumping out pretty good. Joe, since we kind of been working with him on the camo side, he's been shooting prime and mega meets, and I got one going for him too. So there's a couple
Awesome.
Osseo ones out there. So
That's so sick, dude. That's it. I still love that. I feel like that on a bow is just amazing, right?
it's such a cool pattern. I mean, the principle behind it, the army Joe has built in the whitetail world. I mean, we
Yep.
love what he's doing and we're going to support that. I mean,
Yeah, it's a
it's
great
not
family to
just
be a
a
part of.
camo, it's a system, and I love
Yeah.
that. I love that
Well,
with
it's
most
great
brands.
quality.
Yeah.
Like people, I've had buddies of mine that are like, "Oh man, the jackets are like this much, so expensive." I'm like, "Yes, but if you get it now, in 10 years, you're still going to use it, and it's going to be just as quiet as long as you don't tear it on like a thorn or something." Because we got Devil's Briar down here, and boy, let me tell you, my there's been some scouting trips I've done where I wear shorts because it's hot, and I regret it. But yeah, it's just good quality stuff, man. So seeing like, especially that brand that I love so much being printed on a bow, and just it just means a lot. And especially Jay, I need to go back because what's funny about Jay is I was texting him the day he got it, before he got it, and I was like, dude, are you gonna get the prime? Like, how's the family been? All this other stuff, and he's so busy that I try to keep it short with him, and he goes, yeah, I'm gonna get the form and all that. They sent it out. 20 minutes after that, he posts a photo in his driveway with it, smiling, and I was like, man,
He
dude,
texted me that morning
look at
asking
that.
where his bow was. And so I hunted with Jay in Ohio this year, and
Oh, okay.
we were pretty hush hush on it. If you didn't have a hunt in August, you weren't getting a bow just because we had to have it was so new, we needed as many bows out early as we could. So a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
whitetail guys, hate to say it, they didn't get put to the back burner. They just weren't getting a bow right off the bat. So
Yeah.
like I said, I didn't even have one. So when we went to Ohio, I grabbed one out of my office, and within 5 minutes of being at the house with Jay, I'm like, hey, you need to come in this back room and check this out. And he was just like, what in the hell? Like
Yep.
like you said, like the first time you see it, you don't know if it's good, it's bad,
Yeah.
but you want to put it in your hand, And Jay was just like in love with it instantly. Like, how do I get home with this? Like, you don't, So yeah, so to see Jay be able to get his in the last couple of days, a lot of our whitetail guys, it's a little late, but I mean, there's going to be a bow that you're going to be able to pound with all season, and it's it's turned out pretty cool. We're really, I've said it a million times in this podcast already, but we're really excited the future of Prime and what we can do with the system. So
Well, I've said it a million times too. I'm very excited with you.
awesome.
Awesome. Well, that's the prime side of things. If I didn't miss anything, right?
I think we're pretty solid, man. Something
Okay,
might pop
cool.
up, but we're
So G5. Now, this is where I have the most experience with. So I've been bow hunting now for 5 years, 4 or 5 years, something like that.
okay.
And I did not know anything when I started, right? Had a good buddy of mine got me into it. Everybody who's listening knows the story. They're probably skipping this part right now, but I'll make it short. The first broadhead I bought was a G5 Montec. And this is actually, so I said bow hunting. This is before I got a bow. So my wife, the lovely woman she is, got me a crossbow because at the
Okay.
time I was like kind of on the fence. I wasn't sure if I wanted to really get into archery like that or just kind of do it on the side. So I got a crossbow, shot a doe with the Montec. I had no idea that you're supposed to tune these things with your field points. So I'm over here just, aimed up, and I'm like, all right. And I'm thinking I hit her. I see the arrow go all the way through. To me, it looks like a pass through. I see it sticking in a tree, look around, and I missed her clean. Right. So after that, I was like, I should probably switch to mechanicals. So in that long journey, the Mega Meat comes out. Now, I've said it to you already. You've said it already. That broadhead has taken over the broadhead world.
It has.
Unbelievable. That buck right there, with that one, killed him with a Mega Meat.
Mega Meat.
Mega Meat. I just, what? Okay. All right. I'm going to get more professional here because I told you, Get a little fangirly about that
You're
broadhead.
fanboying on me, man.
I am. I am. All right. So how did you guys get to the mega meat? I know the T3 was a broadhead that was around. There was the dead meat. Where did the mega meat come from?
So, it started a long time ago. So, like you said, it Mimed Ferrule, Montec. It's a solid one-piece system. We're the only brand for a long time that had that. That's how we got into the broadhead world. There was a lot of guys using the Mim process on triggers for guns, intricate pieces that probably were too expensive to machine. But if you could mim them and short machine them, so you only had to like maybe sharpen them or put threads on them. That's where the kind of the concept all started with the B52 and the Montec. Well, we've been be able to progress that. We had a broadhead called the Tekken. We had the Tekken 2. They were internal track slide back blade systems. We looked at a lot of different blades, a lot of different systems. Anytime you got to flip the blades back in a broadhead, you're going to lose energy, or on a severe angling shot, one blade's going to open up where the other one's going to not, and it's going to steer. You're going to lose a lot of energy. So we've taken, the Tekken. It was great, but it wasn't that big a cut. Tekken 2, we streamlined it, made it a little more accurate. And then that's when we got into the T3, God, 10, 12 years ago, if not longer than that. Great system. Is basically the transition of what the dead meat is today. But we wanted to go better and better and better. So basically, the T3 turned into the dead meat. Dead meat was a great head, but it still had um, it had a reverse clip system. It was nice, but it just wasn't very intuitive. Guys want something simple. They want something very simple. So basically, we took the mega. That's where the mega meat came out. Is we wanted to go to something. Well, let's go. Basically, we went from the dead meat to the dead meat V2, which is the version 2 of it. We went to a reverse clip, so it's very intuitive. You can hear it positively clip when you close the blades. You can feel it. You want to replace the blades, you literally screw the back of the ferrule off, the blades slide out. It's simple. It's easy. It worked great. Um, we didn't know a 3-inch two blade was possible at 100 grains. It's not easy to do. And
Yeah.
if you look at any of the other blade manufacturers out there, broadhead manufacturers, they've really fallen in the 2-inch two cut two blades. So I mean, all your majors, I mean, if you look at anybody out there, everybody has a 2-inch cut two cut. But could we do it in a three blade? Because we knew three blades were our specialty. So we took the dead meat and really, really looked at it and like, all right, can we change this and do this? And that's basically where the kind of the V2 and the Mega Meat came out, is we were able to capture a full 2-inch cut with a 3-inch, or with a three blade broadhead. So anybody that's used them, you'll know the entrance holes are giant, the exit holes are giant. You might bend a blade, you might lose a blade once in a while, but you're never going to have to worry about blood. You're never going to have to worry about that kind of stuff. They're just a big, devastating broadhead. So we were nervous. We were nervous to bring it out. We were nervous on what we'd possibly get. We took them out early, basically it was just a test run. Was we took them out early in Texas in the summertime, basically right through COVID, right through COVID.
That's
Were
right.
we, can we get this? Can we do enough testing? Can we make sure this is a broadhead that people are going to be satisfied with and going to, clean, ethical kills? We got a little kind of mini pig farm around us that does wild boar hunts. So we've done a lot of testing there, but we wanted to really kind of take it outside the shell. So we
Yeah.
took it down to Texas and we had some amazing results on some big bodied animals. And we are like, I think we're there. I mean, we're excited. We have internal testing that we have to. It's kind of rude and crude. If anybody wants, you can watch one of the Dudley videos of him kind of going through our tour. It's a rude and crude process, but we know exactly the performance we're going to get out of a broadhead by this layering foam system we check. It needs to open by the one or the two or the three layers of foam for us to be happy. If it's anything past that, we have to redesign it. We have to figure out why it's stalling, why it's not opening. And it took a lot of process to get the 1.5 inch to a 2 inch where it wasn't doing that, blade angle, steep, things like that. So it took a while, it took a process, but I mean, we got it there. And like you said, I mean, year after year after year for the last 4 years, it's almost doubled our sales. Like, if you want mega meats in your quiver, you better put them in your quiver in July, because we may not have you on the shelf in October. We're American made manufacturing process. We don't have containers just shipping stuff in to ship more out. We're building broadheads every single day, 365 days a year. I mean, there is always broadheads coming out of our factory. I mean, that's the cool thing about it, is we do it all in house. So
That's so sick. I mean, I knew they were USA made, but dude, that again, the family thing. Yeah, the mega meat for me. So I first saw it, I think it might actually be the ad you're talking about with the Axis deer.
okay,
And so I saw the name and I was like, oh, what's that? I watch it and I see this gigantic hole, and I'm like, holy crap, dude. So that caught my interest. And then I got to be buddies with T-Bone. And T-Bone's a huge fan of the dead meat and mega meat. So
Oh
he
yeah.
fully convinced me to shoot that broadhead. And so I shot that broadhead for since it came out till middle of last season, so 2023. The reason I switched, and this is not anything other than a PSA for people who are idiots like me. I took the same broadhead that I shot pickles with back here. Okay. And just so you know, if I talk about any deer, my daughter names all the deer, so it's gonna be some goofy names.
I can understand that. I'm in my son's room because it has the most amount of skulls, so I kind of get to lock them away. And I think they've named every damn deer in this room and every javelina and hog. And I feel there's a lot of death in this room. So
Nice. I like it. Raising them right.
right.
But yeah, so I shot the same broadhead with the same collar the year before that I shot that deer with. And I had kind of been playing, like I love to tinker, right? I love to figure out like, okay, with my current setup, is a mechanical going to work better or a fixed blade going to work better? And so for the past couple of years, I've been sort of playing with stuff, but I trusted the mega meat. And long story short, I hunted on a Friday, was shooting a fixed blade, shot this doe. The arrow I was using at the time broke when it hit her shoulder because I'm thinking heavy enough arrow, fixed blade, I'll go straight through it. And that deer is still alive. Like she's got a name. She's off the list. My wife won't let me kill her. There's a whole thing behind it now. The next day, I go hunt and I completely changed my setup. I changed arrows because I was mad. I was like, dude, I don't feel right doing this. Like I want to be out there with the best stuff that I can get. And so I changed arrows, changed back to the mega meat, shot my bow, made sure everything was sighted in. We're set. But what I didn't think of is those retention clips probably should get swapped out after every use, roughly.
Probably.
Right? Especially after it's been a year. Okay. Yeah. So I pull the arrow out, put it on my bow, check all the blades, or so I thought. And this doe comes out and I pull back and I've got it right behind the shoulder, right? Let the arrow go and I see that broadhead fly and then cut right and go straight through the guts. That's the first time I'd ever gut shot a deer. So when I was saying earlier, it's probably the saddest story, at least personally, that I've ever had. I hated it. But to give credit to the mega meat, that hole was about this big. Okay. So I saw everything hanging out. And for the longest time, I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? So I ended up in the moment switching over to fixed blades. And then I started kind of revisiting it and thinking more and more. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's the same broadhead I shot before. I didn't change the clip. I don't even know if I checked the blades to make sure they were popped in or not. I was like, let me try this again. So I have a whole setup in my front yard where I can shoot. Like I've got probably 2 packs of mega meat replacement blades. So if I'd shoot one into the target and break a blade, I'll just replace them. It's no big deal. So I think I shot probably 10 different times and replaced the blades 10 different times just to make sure that I was right in what I was thinking, that the whole thing.
You had to get your confidence back. I can totally
exactly
understand.
And I can firmly say that they're in my quiver now. Like I've got those, I got the dead meats. I'm over that whole thing. So a PSA for people is change those collars. Even if you don't think you need to, I would recommend changing the collars. I mean, do you agree with that?
I agree with it. I mean, they shouldn't deteriorate over time, but if you're a guy that likes to play with your broadheads, if you like to pop them in and out and check them, things like that, I mean, after about the third or fourth time you've popped them open, you definitely should replace the clip. You are lowering that retention. This is something I'm going to say. I mean, it's not something you have to do. I personally shoot the crossbow version. It's about 3 pounds, not 3 times, 3 pounds stiffer than the standard blue, but they're still going to open up on almost any compound. So it just gives you a little bit more reassurance going in and out of a quiver. If you pop a blade, it's still going to hold, even though it's probably even wore down. It's going to be the same weight as the standards. But yeah, I mean, you need to replace them. If you look in the package, we send 3 or 4 extra ones in every pack. At the beginning of season, put some new ones on. It's just going to give you that reassurance that it's a nice, fresh, system. I mean, you said it. If you ever had a broadhead or a mechanical with one blade open, it's quite a ride. I've seen it happen. I've seen it on a lot of videos. But yeah, just make sure they're nice. If you can't hear that click, replace the click.
And
Yeah,
that's what it
you should
was.
hear that positive clip, and that's why we made the change from the original dead meat to the dead meat V2 was that retention system. We wanted something that was more intuitive, more positive. So yeah, I would say get extra clips. I mean, get blades. Just so you have some. It's easy to do. They're super easy to work on. They're super easy to change, especially if you're just changing a clip and not even changing blades. You
Yeah.
literally deploy it, unscrew it, put one on. And there's still guys out there like, oh, I can't believe it's 2024, 2025, and people are still using clips. It's intuitive. It's easy to work with. It's the polymers and the plastics and the things are so much different than what they were 10 or 15 years ago. You're not having the problem with inconsistency, hot weather, cold weather, things like that.
Yeah.
So, change them out.
So still on the clip question, because
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about the blades, because what you guys do with those blades, I got to tell you, I've cut myself so many times changing them out and pulling them out. There was one time I pulled it out of the target. This was years ago. And I pulled it out of the target and I was trying to close one of the blades and it slipped and it literally sliced from here to here on my thumb. And I just put it back on, got some glue, wrapped it up, and just looked at it like, well, they're sharp. I mean, I can't hate on that. But before we get into the blade stuff, is there any possible way to maybe eventually come out with like a no collar version of the mega meat or the dead meat?
Yeah, we're looking at it. I mean, something we haven't talked about, really at all is our new T2. So
Oh,
we have a
I was
new
saving
big,
that. I was
yeah, we
saving
have a
that.
new two big 2-inch cut two blade. We work with John Dudley on the design. It does look very similar to another brand, but if you look at it internally, it's a totally different system. It's got an all internal metal clip on the inside that works on retention. So we are looking at, the future. I mean, we're really at the moment, we'd have to make really significant good changes for us to even want to change it. But that concept, if we could put that into the mega meat, where you're not having to, where you can probably use it indefinitely, where you never have to replace the clip. Yeah, we're in. But at the moment, we're very happy. We're very satisfied with the system we have. But yeah, I mean, we're always looking. We're always looking to improve. I mean, if you looked at the Tekken to the T3 to the dead meat, it's all been a progression of
Yep.
very similar broadheads, just changed. And we're not one to just add another one to the lineup. We'll keep it for a year or two and then we'll obsolete it because we feel we've made the better improvement for it. We're never going to come out with a broadhead just to come out with a broadhead. It's always going to be an improvement on something we have. There might be a category we haven't been in the past, like say a hybrid or a two blade or something like that we might get into, but we're never going to come in and go, you need 12 different versions of that. We're not there to sell broadheads. We're there to make ethical kills. We
Yeah.
want the guys that are going to be hunting with our stuff to be happy with the process, not just to sell another pack of broadheads. So, that's something we all, strive to do. We want the best ethical kills, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to have the sharpest blades. We're going to have the best sourcing. We're going to do as much as we can internally, we try to make the best of what we have. So
We all are doing a pretty good job.
appreciate that.
Talking about the T2 though, so I know that the mega meat and dead meat blades and some of the fixed blades too, I think, go through that German Lutz blade sharpening,
Yep.
correct? Does the
So
T2 get that?
no. So
No. Okay.
yeah, so it's sourcing. So what we found with Lutz is you're not necessarily getting the exact stuff that you always want, and it's a pretty tough brand to work with. They have a 50-week lead time to get a new product.
Whoa.
And then after you've actually developed it, it's somewhere around 26 to 28 weeks. So it's very careful. So we've been able to source with another brand that I think is very comparable, if not better. So it's as sharp as what we've ever had in with our Lutz blades. It's that T2 is one badass broadhead. Like I've always like, man, I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I'm gonna get away from my mega meats. I shot my first elk this year with the T2 on a severe quartering two shot, basically through the front shoulder, jammed all the way into the back hip. It was incredible. I mean, my entrance hole was like 4.5 inches across. So it's 50-50 what's going to be my quiver this year. Like I
Yeah.
shot all my whitetails with mega meats, but I shot that elk with that T2. They're incredibly sharp. They're incredibly inducive to creating giant entrance and giant exit holes. I mean, everything that we're known for, and an all
Let's
steel
do it.
ferrule, all American made, all steel ferrule, so, right in our wheelhouse.
So is the T2 also going to come, because I know it, at least I don't think it does right now, with a BMP point? Because that's one big thing that you guys made that I think when I was first, especially getting the mega meats and especially now still, you can shoot that point and it is exactly the same. I
Yeah.
mean, exactly the same. Is the
Everybody wants a broadhead that flies like a field point.
Yeah,
Why not make a field point that flies like a broadhead? That was
yeah,
our goal. I mean, that's as simple as it is. I mean, we do, it's not just making a practice point and putting it in the package. We have a wild array of bows. Some are in tune, some are out of tune, and we shoot multiple distances and we build that broadhead or a BMP to match what the broadhead flight is. We actually just finished up the T2 one. It's very similar to what you're going to see. It almost looks identical to the Mega Meat one, but those will be hitting the market here pretty quick. Surprisingly, we were able to kind of base it off of that one. It doesn't, it looks more like that one. You think, okay, it's a 3 blade versus 2 blade, but we've been able
huh,
to kind of ballistically match it. So yeah, so they'll be hitting the shelf here. I'm thinking the next couple weeks. So
gotcha. That's interesting. I've I've looked at those practice points and the Mega Meat, or just any of the mechanicals or any broadhead that you guys made those for, and
mhm.
I just look at that design and look at the broadhead. I'm like, how does that work? I mean, how do you get it? Is it
There's a
aerodynamics
base
thing?
idea, like we have a wind tunnel. There's a base idea to put them in the wind tunnel. Just kind of
Mhm.
come up with a concept that we feel is going to be close. Put them in the wind tunnel, see if they get the same aerodynamics. Once they've hit that point, that's when we go to the basically this shooting machine and personal shooting and going out there and basically tuning a system, building all these different designs until we can kind of to match, you know. It's kind of like old school walk back tuning on your bow, but
Yeah.
we physically change a product to get there. We do it with a tune bow and untuned bow, and they have to hit the same spots. So,
Wow. I never knew there was that much that went into it. I'm a
oh
broadhead nut, dude. I could literally talk, I could tell you stories after stories of broadheads I've used. Like
yeah.
I shot some of the beast broadheads this year. Have mixed feelings on that one. Killed a doe, lost a doe. It is what it is.
It is what it is. I think they have something going on there. I mean, I'm not going to knock them. I mean,
Yeah.
more competition is better. You know, I mean, it's only
Yeah.
going to
It
strive
drives y'all to
everybody to
innovate.
kind of to look at options. You know, and I think they're going to be fine. You know, I mean, we're still going to push to go all steel over aluminum. You know, we've looked at springs, we've tested springs. We're not the biggest fan of them. We
Oh,
like momentum. You know, they worked with Lutz to develop their blades. You know, so I mean, they're doing the right things.
huh. I love hearing about this, man. Just the stuff that you guys have done. Cause like people will look at a broadhead and be like, oh, it's a broadhead. Okay, it's got two blades. It pops out. And I'm a nerd with this. Like I will literally, I've watched videos on how to sharpen them and to the point where it's you touch it and you're bleeding. I look at the broadhead. I'm like, okay, well, if it pops open here, how much force is needed to keep the blades open? What happens if it deflects? Like that whole thing is just so interesting to me. So what other line or I guess what other broadheads does G5 offer? Because I know you guys have fixed blades and mechanicals. What for people
Those
who
are
don't
our two biggest category. I mean, not two biggest. Those are our two categories. So we started with the Montec. It's still been in tried and true. So there's a standard Montec, which is 17-4 stainless. It's a great head, but it's still stainless steel, so it won't be as sharp. And it has a 90 or 60-degree blade angle. So it's twice as the blade angle of most other broadheads. So guys will say, oh, it's not sharp enough. Well, we never wanted to change that because you can sharpen it on a flat stone. So we've had to increase in material sourcing and things like that. So we came out with a carbon steel version of that one. Same exact head, just carbon steel. It's about 10-point Rockwell harder than the standard, but the problem is it's carbon steel. So you have to wax it, you have to put some kind of oil on it. If you're hunting in the rain, get those things inside as quick as you can after you're done. They will rust, just like a high-end carbon steel knife will.
huh.
Um, so progression of the MIM process, molded injected metal, has finally got into some more exotic materials. 17-4 now is 420. So a lot of the materials like high end, you know, knives or high end broadheads, even like Iron Will 420 is a very popular choice. Now we've been able to bring that into the MIM process. So we have that in the M3. It's non-vented, so it's a quieter head. It's significantly sharper, but another 10 Rockwell harder than the carbon steel. So that's the three progressions in the Montec. So basically standard, carbon steel, and then the M3. The Striker is our replaceable blade version of the Montec. Solid steel ferrule. We make it in two different versions, a 3 blade and a 4 blade, 100 and 125. Lutz blades, so incredibly sharp, incredibly compact. It's a great, you know, if you're like a replacement blade guy, you don't want to resharpen your broadheads. Strikers are awesome. They're short, they're compact, they fly like a field point. They're awesome. On the carbon or on the mechanical side, like I said earlier, we're not a company that has a ton of broadheads. Um, Dead meat, crossbow, and standard. The only difference is a clip, basically a little bit stiffer. Inch and a half. The Mega Meat is a 2-inch version of that broadhead. Same thing, crossbow and standard. And then the newest one would be the T2. So we have that one, and we just finished another one up that's in the T2 family. That's a crossbow version. We feel it's the only true 500 feet per second fast crossbow broadhead out there. That we've worked with some of the other ones. We have a slow-mo camera in house. We've seen some stalling. We've seen some entrance holes that I wouldn't be happy with some of the other brands that are claiming 500 feet. This one opens as fast as the standard T2, but holds up over 500 feet per second. So we're pretty excited on that one. And that one's going to be hitting the market here in May or June, probably closer to June. So,
So are y'all gonna have a video showing that?
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
good, good.
We're working on some stuff on the social media side where we're going to probably be a little more transparent on the engineering side and things like that. Should have that pretty quick, so there should be some of that stuff being able. But yeah, we're not very scared we don't hide a lot. We're not
Yeah,
one to go, ooh, we did our secret sauce. We can't let anybody see it. There's obvious things we don't want people to see,
yeah.
but we're pretty transparent. We want people to know the testing we do. It's not just making a product in China and it's shipped over here. It's developed here. It's built here. It's got 30 different renditions of a ferrule. It's got 17 renditions of a blade. We're not just copying somebody and going, oh yeah, that one should be close enough. No, Nate is particular. Our engineering staff is excuse me, is a smaller team, but they're young and they're very bright, and we're excited to push it. And another one that we don't talk about a lot, but I think everybody should have one in their quiver, is our small game head, or SGH. If you haven't used it, go get a pack. Everybody go buy a pack. We make them in singles and three backs. It's basically a blunt force trauma broadhead for coons, squirrels, raccoon, coyotes. I've killed a coyote with them. Basically, it tears and rips, and just it's
Dang.
devastating. So,
Is that the one that's like an eagle claw?
yeah, it looks like three
Okay.
evil claws. It's
Yeah.
our version of the judo point, but just
Got it.
way more wicked than a judo point ever was. So,
Crazy. I've seen that, man. But see, I don't do much turkey hunting. Like when it's deer season, that's all I'm going for. And then when it's not deer season, I'm prepping for next deer season. So it's
I'm
like,
right there with you, but I get a little
yeah,
itchy in the stand once in a while, the occasional coon, or I don't know. This is maybe my take on things. Any hunt that I'm in that a coyote shows up, it turns into a coyote hunt right then and there.
yeah,
Like, unless I have a target buck that I have a pretty good inkling it's coming, there's going to be an arrow flung at a coyote.
yeah. I mean,
So,
I have a German Shepherd, so I might be a little messed up for it. But to me, it's like you're out here eating the babies of what I'm trying. Like we're trying to make this deer population better and healthier and
exactly.
stuff. I'm sorry. I'm gonna forget my dog for about 30 seconds. And I'm gonna send it. Um, that's sick, man. Well, so is there anything else on the bow side or G5 side we need to cover before we get into your season?
Um, Not a ton, man. We've gone over all the broadheads. We've gone over that. We got some new accessory. Like, we came out with the headlock quiver that's been a staple for us for a long time in Mossy Oak Bottomlands. Call out to you
Ooh,
Southeast boys.
okay.
So we're bringing those out this year. Um, that's been about it, man. We were so focused on the form this year. That's been our major focus. So
Gotcha. Well, 10 years in the making, possibly 12, and it came together flawlessly in my opinion. So
appreciate it, man.
y'all keep it up with both Prime and G5 because you got a big fan right here, in case you couldn't tell earlier.
Appreciate that.
Well, look, all right. So I want to hear about your season, man. You were telling me about it a little bit earlier, and I was honestly shocked because I'm strictly Georgia right now. I do have plans to go to like Ohio in 2 years, Colorado in a few years, stuff like Alaska probably when I'm 60 because that's when I'll be able to afford it.
That's about the
Um,
time we'll all afford it.
yeah, it's gonna be rough, but yeah. What was your season like, man? Take me from beginning of season to right now.
It's been good. It's been probably one of my better seasons I've ever had. Started early, was able to lucky enough to pull an Idaho elk tag in a unit that we, I don't want to say consistently pull tags in because nothing's consistent in Idaho. It's not easy. You fight the lottery system. It's not easy. But we've been able to kind of put a camp together over the last couple years. We all, one person, two guys usually kill out of three or four of us that go. And I'm a big boy. I'm not the easiest to hike in the mountains, and I worked my ass off to lose a bunch of weight this year, and I was able to kind of be with one of my best friends and stick my first elk this year. So, like I said, it was a
Sure.
cow. It was actually with a bull, but I had more opportunity in the cow, and my goal this year was to kill an elk. So I was more than tickled pink on it. My kids are happy. They got a freezer full of elk meat. So yeah, that's how we got to start the season out. You know, a buddy of mine killed a really good bull while we were out there. So it was a great start to the year. So after that was a quick trip to Ohio with Jay and another buddy of ours. Um, we did a little more working than we did hunting, but
Yeah.
kind of got to help out a outfitter buddy of Jay's, and it worked out really well. Had a great opportunity, had a pretty good 8 and a 10. Actually had him under 20 yards twice and couldn't get an arrow in the 8 point, like mid 40s
Why?
8 point. Yeah, it was pretty wild. So kind of went home with a tag in my pocket, but I'm pretty used to that, so it wasn't a big deal to me.
Wait. What happened?
Once he just caught me, the other time just couldn't get an opportunity on a shot. So
Oh,
basically, he hit my scent line one time and flat ass got out of there. Second time, he just kind of snuck through where I couldn't get a shot through some brush. So it was
dang,
kind of funny.
man.
I was
I
on a
hate
little
when you do
tiny
that.
chunk, basically. Jay's hunting some big giant farms. We helped set some things up. I was basically almost 100 yards behind a gas station. Like it was a
Nice.
cool little spot. I could hear
Nice.
everything going on and trying to get it done. So it was a lot of fun. From there, I got invited from a buddy of mine that he is an aged big buck killer. I mean, from the age of 13, he's probably put, I don't know, 15, 20 booners on the ground. Last year, him and his dad both killed over 200 inches. So
It's not Mitch Rompola, is it?
no, no, no.
Okay.
We were in Kansas, so
I had
so
to.
I got an invite from him. We were supposed to go turkey hunting, and he's like, "Well, why don't you just put in for your whitetail tag?" I'm like, "Are you saying what I'm saying?" So I was able to spend a lot of time, probably more time than I should have. I put 9 solid days in November into it, and had a couple good bucks, but nothing in the age class that we were going after. So I kind of went home with another tag in my pocket, but I told him, I'm like, hey, if there's an opportunity to come back, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
So kind of led into Michigan, was able to kill a pretty good, decent buck in Michigan with a buddy of mine. So that's been a couple years since I put a Michigan buck on the ground. Usually shoot some does, chasing things. Michigan hunting to me is, I love it. It's my tradition, but it's pretty tough to find, some quality deer. So
Hmm.
stable, so I was pretty excited doing that. And then the day after Christmas, my wife was blessed enough to tell me to go back to Kansas. So 12 hours after opening Christmas present, I was flying into Kansas. That night, we were hunting a new piece that he wasn't as restrictive on, and I had a pretty good buck come in, and actually shot my leg with my bottom cam and shot right between his legs. First night, first sit. Like
Wow.
we probably had 40 deer in front of us. It was awesome. It was foggy. It was one of those nights you just always remember. And
Yeah.
I just think to myself, what the hell did I do? After that, he actually came back in and gave me opportunity. And I just, for some reason in my mind, saying he wasn't the deer. The Lord told me this wasn't the deer. He did it for me. And so I passed him. I had him twice at 15 yards after that. And I mean, he was good. He's a great deer. He just wasn't very old. And in my mind, Clayton, I could see Clayton, the buddy I was hunting with, just going, he's not the right deer for you. And he never said it. He said, you shoot what makes you happy.
Yeah.
The next morning, we went to a spot that I killed a doe earlier in Kansas with. And we had 2 shooter bucks there. The morning was pretty darn slow. And then it wasn't. We had 15 bucks in front of us, not a doe in sight. Number one shooter, chubs, we call them, big, giant 6 or 7 year old 8 point, just super heavy, wasn't very wide, but just super heavy buck. And he skirted us and played with us. And, we were like, what do we do? Like, it's late season. They're not calling the grunts. They're not doing that. We have bucks all around us. So we started playing with them a little bit, and it kind of made the other deer a little edgy, but I mean, we knew what we were going after. And out of nowhere, we look up in a buck called Red, old Red. He's a 6 year old 8 point, big, heavy. He was totally different than any of the other deer. As soon as we seen him, we knew it was him. He had white socks to his elbow. He's bright red. All the other deer there are brown. As
Hmm.
soon as we seen it, it was kind of anticlimactic because within 15 seconds of seeing him, he had a mega meat through his cage. So,
Nice.
it was awesome. Like out of all that morning and all the action we had, it's the deer we've seen the least amount of time, but it was a buck that we were hoping would come in. It's a deer we've had on camera all year. And 60 yards later, he was piled up, man. The mega meat ate him up. So, So that was kind of the wrap to my season. So I mean, that pushed me right till basically the day before New Year's is the day I came home. I went and tried to shoot a couple does or help those guys shoot a couple does while we were there, and the weather turned. And like I said, it was 67 degrees, and we were sitting in a t-shirt 2 days after Christmas trying to chase does, and it was just like. So I spent a couple days with him, helped him out. Um, it's been good though. So I mean, I can't complain. Quite a few whitetails. My first elk. It's been a good ride this year. And the best thing is I got to spend them with three of my best friends. I mean, my buddy from Utah and my Idaho elk, a really good buddy here back home for my Michigan deer, and one of my closest friends in Kansas. So it was really blessed. I mean, all three of them I had somebody to sit. It wasn't alone hunts by any means. Every single one of them had somebody right next to me. So.
That's awesome, dude. I love hearing seasons like that, especially like when you're saying, God was telling me that ain't the one. And then, of course, old Red shows up and it's like, all right, son, go get him. I
And that
love
was it.
stuff like
It
that,
was
man.
yeah, it was blessed, man. I've been very blessed this year. I've learned a lot this year. Got to spend time with the RVX where everybody else was using the forum. So, got to put the miles down, got to use the T2 on my elk. I got to use Mega Meats. I mean, I got the whole array of products, so
So if anybody has any questions on those broadheads, you can say, hey, hold on one second. Let me pull these photos up and show them and be like, yeah, they work. They
absolutely.
definitely work. So any thoughts you had? This is what I got to show you.
And the funny thing is, I can show my kills, but the amount of people that text me and message me with Mega Meat kills and T2 kills, it's silly, dude. It's silly. It's really heartwarming, and like I've got buddies that I haven't seen since high school that send me a message out of the blue, dude, I shot one with the Mega Meat, I shot one with the T2, or guys that are just getting into hunting that usually as I mean, I work the office, I help with phones once in a while, especially when the team's low, and just still pick up the phone and get a call of a guy that had a hell of a season with a Megami, a Montac, a Striker. It still warms my heart to hear those stories every day. So I mean, I feel blessed to be able to be where I'm at and what I do and who I work with. So
I told you, man, you're living the dream.
I appreciate that,
You
man.
are. I mean, I love hearing this sort of stuff, dude. I know I've said it 1,000 times, but I have to give y'all credit where it's due. It's just the proof is in the pudding or in the broadhead or the gripper bin, whatever you want to call
Whatever you want to call
it. Yeah.
it, right?
Awesome, man. Well, look, dude, I've kept you for a little bit over an hour. I know you're a busy man, and I know my wife's probably waiting on me. It's usually
I
how
can
this
smell
goes.
tacos in the background, so I know my family is. So
Yeah, I don't even think we've eaten dinner yet. We had like a very late lunch. I was telling you about the ice and stuff. We stopped at a
yep.
gas station, got like 2 or 3 burgers and a empanada. So I know I'm feeling a little hungry. I'm sure she is too. But look, so for people who just must live under a rock or aren't or are, let's just say this, are getting into archery, are new to archery, where can they find, G5 Prime, everything that you're working with?
So the cool thing about G5 is we are practically everywhere. I tell everybody, spend all your money at your local pro shops. Go to your local show pro shops. Don't be intimidated, especially for a new guy. Going into an archery shop is a little nerve-wracking just because it is kind of clicky and it is kind of most of the guys in the shop are great people. They want more people involved. So go into your local shop. We should be in 99.9% of all archery shops. We're in Bass Pro, we're in Cabela's, we're in Sportsman's Warehouse, we're even in Walmart. Anywhere online, you should be able to find our products online. Prime is a little bit less than that. We have about 350 dealers across the world. So just look up on the dealer locator. Same thing with G5. Just jump on our websites, take a look. Though there's going to be a dealer in the area to be able to put one in your hand. So we're out there, man. Just got to take a couple of minutes to take us to find us, but we're there for you. So.
Taking over the world, man. I love
Appreciate it,
it.
brother.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you coming on. And dude, I'm looking forward to another one. We need to do this again soon.
You got it, man. Sounds perfect.
Awesome.